Hello and welcome. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran and this is Voice of the Global South. All right then, let's get started. On the show this week, Putin offers to help broker US-Iran nuclear talks. Find out who's happy and who's not. The Asiatic lion, once on the brink of extinction, makes a historic comeback thanks to India's aggressive conservation strategy. On the International Women's Day, we celebrate women from Namibia to Nepal, Bangladesh to Burkina Faso, who defy the odds to leave an indelible mark on human history. And watch exclusively on our YouTube channel, the US charges Chinese hackers and government officials with carrying out a global cybercrime campaign that also targeted India. All that and much, much more coming up on Voice of the Global South.
We will measure our success not only by the battles we win, but also by the wars that we end, and perhaps most importantly, the wars we never get into. My proudest legacy will be that of a peacemaker and unifier. That's what I want to be, a peacemaker and a unifier.
He's doing it in Gaza and Ukraine. But what about Iran? Will Trump go to war with Iran, or will he smoke the peace pipe with the Iranians? Trump himself broke the news that he's written a letter to Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei.
Something's going to happen one way or the other. I hope that Iran, and I've written him a letter saying, I hope you're going to negotiate, because if we have to go in militarily, it's going to be a terrible thing for them.
You wrote a letter to the Khomeini,
yes.
the leader? When did you send the letter?
Yesterday.
He's also spoken about a potential peace deal with Iran.
Very, very soon. You'll be talking about that pretty soon, I guess. And hopefully we can have a peace deal. You know, I'm not speaking out of strength or weakness. I'm just saying I'd rather see a peace deal than the other. But the other will solve the problem.
It follows his 4th February executive order imposing maximum pressure on Iran. Now, within 2 days of signing it, he had put sanctions on Iran's oil network, all in a bid to prevent Iran from going nuclear. For good measure, Trump warned Iran against assassinating him.
That would be a terrible thing for them to do, not because of me. If they did that, they would be obliterated. That would be the end. I've left instructions. If they do it, they get obliterated. There won't be anything left.
Remember, in August of 2024, the US had charged a Pakistani national linked to Iran with plotting to kill Trump. A few days ago, as this map shows, a US drone flew close to Iran's airspace. And just last month, the US flew its B-52 bombers near Iran in a show of force. That's not all. In his first term in office, Trump did a few things. He withdrew the US from the Iran nuclear deal, ordered the assassination of General Qasem Soleimani, signed an executive order banning the entry of Iranians into the US, and sanctioned Iranian companies and individuals suspected of being involved in Iran's missile program. So Trump has a history of animus towards Iran. Enter Vladimir Putin, Trump's BFF. Now, Putin wants to give a return gift to Trump for wanting to end the Ukraine conflict pretty much on Moscow's terms. Putin has offered to mediate a truce between the US and Iran. Bloomberg was the first to report it. The Kremlin has since acknowledged it. Russian state-run TV channel Zvezda quoted the Kremlin spokesperson as saying that Putin had agreed to mediate between Iran and the US in talks concerning nuclear weapons.
Иран – это наш партнер, Иран – это наш союзник, и мы…
Iran is our partner, Iran is our ally, and despite whatever happens on other tracks, we will develop our relations with Iran. President of Russia, Vladimir Putin, thinks and is convinced that the problem of Iran's nuclear dossier must be resolved exclusively by peaceful means. There is the possibility to return to the basic document, etc. Of course, Russia, being Iran's ally, is ready to do whatever possible to facilitate the peaceful solution of the problem.
для того, чтобы способствовать этим.
Now, Moscow says it discussed Iran with the Americans in Saudi Arabia, and that the Russian position really is that this problem of Iran's nuclear dossier should be solved exclusively by peaceful, political, and diplomatic means. Russia, of course, has deepened its ties with Iran since the start of the Ukraine conflict. It signed a strategic cooperation treaty with Iran in January. So Putin has the credibility and leverage to broker peace between Tehran and Washington, D.C. Iran stands to gain from such a peace deal. It will, for instance, get immediate relief from economic sanctions. It will get to export more of its oil. Its economy will get better, which in turn will improve the Iranian people's living standards. Now, you'd think it would make Iran happy, but no, it's not. Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei is not too kicked about it. And taking his cue from his boss, President Masoud Pezeshkian has changed his stand. He now opposes it. Ordinary Iranians don't want to become a bargaining chip in Putin's dealings with Trump. Banners such as these have come up in Tehran, warning of the dangers of talking to Trump. An opinion piece published by Tehran Times reads, the Trump-Zelensky encounter wasn't just an international incident. It was a gift. It was a stark, undeniable reminder that our destiny is in our own hands. Let us heed the warning, cast off the shackles of dependency, and forge a future where Iran is the master of its own fate. The time for illusions is over. The time for self-reliance is now. Kayhan, whose chief editor is appointed by Khamenei himself, warns Moscow not to fall into America's trap. Now, Iran has been expanding its production of highly enriched uranium, and some Iranians are becoming vocal about pursuing a nuclear weapon, which Israel is vehemently opposed to. Now, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says Israel would, quote-unquote, finish the job of preventing Iran from obtaining nuclear weapons if Trump supports the idea of destroying Iran's nuclear facilities. The Times of Israel newspaper reports that Putin's offer to mediate between the US and Iran is deeply worrying for Israel because Trump's increasingly cozy relationship with Putin could undo Israel's plans for pressuring Iran to abandon its nuclear ambitions. And how does the Arab world view these developments? Well, Saudi Arabia, for one, has already normalized its ties with Iran. In fact, if reports are to be believed, the Saudis themselves had offered to mediate between Iran and the US. So, will Trump take up on Putin's offer to mediate a truce with Iran? Or will Trump back Israel against Iran? Opinion is divided in Washington, D.C. Elbridge Colby, Trump's nominee for Undersecretary of Policy at the Pentagon, says Iran's nuclear ambitions could pose an existential threat to the US and that military action may be necessary to stop it. But National Security Council spokesperson Brian Hughes says the US will talk to its adversaries and allies alike. So, in conclusion, does the US have an appetite for war after Afghanistan and Iraq? For someone who sees himself as a peacemaker and worthy of a Nobel Prize, will Trump take Putin's bait? We'll know soon enough. Now, did you know that the Gir National Park in India is the only known habitat of the Asiatic lion? The Asiatic lion is one of the most endangered large carnivores. But thanks to conservation, the population of this species is steadily rising. Ragini Sudhir Chaure has more.
India, the only home to the Asiatic lion in the world, is setting new standards in wildlife conservation. On 3rd March, Prime Minister Narendra Modi visited the Gir National Park in Gujarat for an early morning safari. Armed with a camera, he turned a photographer, capturing the raw beauty of these majestic creatures in their natural habitat. He expressed admiration for the lions of Gir, highlighting how India's conservation efforts have led to a steady rise in their population. He said, and I quote, "In the last many years, collective efforts have ensured that the population of Asiatic lions is rising steadily. Equally commendable is the role of tribal communities and women from surrounding areas in preserving the habitat of the Asiatic lion." In 2010, India had 411 Asiatic lions. In 2015, this number rose to 523, and in 2020, it reached 674. The Asiatic lion, once on the brink of extinction, has made a historic comeback because of an aggressive conservation strategy. The Gujarat government has increased the funding, allocating 155.53 crore rupees in 2023-24 for conservation. Simultaneously, the Indian government's efforts led the International Union for Conservation of Nature to upgrade the Asiatic lion's status from critically endangered to endangered in 2008, a recognition of the country's success in wildlife protection. Launched under the leadership of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Project Lion focuses on landscape-based conservation, habitat restoration, and community participation. Plans are also underway to expand the lion habitat beyond Gir, ensuring their long-term survival in a balanced ecosystem. Prime Minister Modi inaugurated Vantara, a first-of-its-kind animal rescue, conservation and rehabilitation centre located at the Reliance Jamnagar complex. Spanning over 3,000 acres, Vantara provides a haven for rescued and injured animals, particularly elephants and other animals subjected to abuse and exploitation. Vantara is not just a shelter, it is a symbol of India's evolving conservation approach where advanced medical care, ethical rehabilitation, and scientific interventions come together to protect wildlife. Vantara houses state-of-the-art medical facilities, elephant enclosures, and natural habitat that allow rescued animals to recover and thrive. The Prime Minister recounted his experience. At Vantara, I saw an elephant which was the victim of an acid attack. The elephant was being treated with utmost care. There were other elephants too, which were blinded, and that too, ironically, by their mahout. Another elephant was hit by a speeding truck. This underscores an important question. How can people be so careless and cruel? Let us put an end to such irresponsibility and focus on kindness towards animals. India's conservation journey has pioneered several groundbreaking projects aimed at protecting its diverse wildlife. Take Project Tiger, for instance. Launched in 1973, it has transformed India into a global leader in tiger conservation. Today, India is home to over 70% of the world's wild tiger population. Their numbers have risen from 2,967 in 2018 to 3,682 in 2022. The ambitious Cheetah reintroduction project has also made headlines, with new sites being identified for future releases, including Gandhi Sagar Sanctuary in Madhya Pradesh and Banni grasslands in Gujarat. That's not all. India has adopted cutting-edge technology to enhance monitoring and management. AI-based tracking, geospatial mapping, and rapid response teams are being deployed to mitigate human-wildlife conflict and prevent poaching. A significant collaboration between the Forest Survey of India and BISAG-N is using space technology to predict, detect, and prevent forest fires, ensuring real-time responses to environmental threats. India is also playing a crucial role on the global stage through its active participation in the United Nations Convention on the Conservation of Migratory Species of Wild Animals. The country is fostering international collaboration to protect endangered species beyond its borders. Marking another milestone, India recently released its first ever National River Dolphin Estimation Report, covering 28 rivers across 8 states. This initiative has encouraged local community participation, ensuring that conservation is not just a government-led effort, but a people-driven movement. Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to Gir and the inauguration of Vantara signal India's resolve to balance development with ecological sustainability. By blending traditional conservation wisdom with cutting-edge technology, the country is shaping a future where wildlife thrives alongside human progress. As the world grapples with biodiversity loss, India stands as a beacon of hope. A nation that not only protects its wildlife but leads global efforts in conservation. With the roar of the Asiatic lion echoing through Gir and the vision of Vantara setting new benchmarks, India leads the world in safeguarding the natural heritage. With Ragini Sudhir Chaure, Tanvi Taneja for DD India.
2025 is a special year. It marks the 50th anniversary of the establishment of the International Women's Day and the 30th anniversary of the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action, the most visionary roadmap on women's rights. Here's a look back at the strides that women in the global south have made. This is their story of resilience and the fight for a more equitable future. Ayushi Ahuja reports.
Must invest in women and girls, turbocharge progress and build a better world for all, and I thank you.
Just last year, a day before International Women's Day, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres made a stunning statement that gender equality is still 300 years away.
At our current rate of change, full legal equality for women is some 300 years away. So is the end of child marriage. And by 2030, over 340 million women and girls will still be living in extreme poverty, some 18 million more than men and boys. This is an insult to women and girls.
3 centuries. That's longer than the time it took humans to advance from the steam engine to artificial intelligence. And longer than the United States has existed as a nation. But here's the thing. Women, especially in the global south, don't have another 300 years to wait. They are leading, building, creating and changing the world right here and right now. Take Netumbo Nandi-Ndaitwah, Namibia's first woman president. She did not run to make history. She ran because leadership isn't a man's birthright. Her election is proof that the world is changing, but also a reminder of how long it took to bring about change. Or Malala Yousafzai, who was just a schoolgirl when a gunman tried to silence her for demanding an education. He failed, and how? Today, Yousafzai is the youngest Nobel laureate in history, ensuring millions of girls get the education they deserve. In architecture, Marina Tabassum is redefining how people live. Her climate-resilient homes in Bangladesh are not just structures. They are a blueprint for survival in a warming world. Then there is Nadia Murad, who survived the terrorist group Islamic State's captivity and turned her pain into a movement. A Nobel Peace Prize winner, Murad fights to end sexual violence in conflict zones because war should never mean a woman's body becomes a battlefield. Elsewhere, in Burkina Faso, Maimouna Ba is rebuilding shattered lives, helping displaced children return to school and women regain financial independence. Deepti Gurung in Nepal refused to accept that her daughters were stateless just because their mother, not their father, was a Nepali citizen. Today, thousands of children have a legal identity because of her fight. And from the world of cinema, India's Payal Kapadia has shattered expectations. In 2024, she won the Grand Prix at the Cannes Film Festival for her fiction feature debut, All We Imagine as Light. The film also earned her a nomination for the Golden Globe Award for Best Director, an extraordinary feat in an industry where women directors are still a minority. Kapadia, Gurung, Ba, Murad, Tabassum, Yousafzai, and Nandi Endaitwa. They're not waiting. They're not asking for permission. They are taking action. And yet, women are still paid less, promoted less, and protected less. Despite laws and policies, gender equality remains a distant promise. The 2025 International Women's Day theme is Accelerate Action. This year is also special. It marks 30 years since the Beijing Declaration, the blueprint that transformed the women's rights agenda. Before 1995, only 12 countries had legal sanctions against domestic violence. Today, there are 1,583 legal measures in 193 countries. A huge leap. But here's a reality check. A law on paper does not mean justice in real life. So what's next? More laws? More promises? Or more action? Because these women, these trailblazers, aren't waiting. And neither should we. Women's lives matter, period.
For years, women have been told to be patient. That change takes time. But the women of the Global South have proven something else. That change happens when you refuse to wait. From education to leadership, science to activism, they are reshaping the world. So today, on International Women's Day, let's celebrate them. Not just with words, but with action. Because equality isn't a favor, it's a right. Happy International Women's Day to all the trailblazing women out there. May your stories inspire generations to come. Ayushi Ahuja for DD India.
And with that, it's a wrap. We wish all you incredible women a very happy International Women's Day. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.